Social Network, new film from David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin, who was on the programme last week. I mean, I'm assuming that everybody knows essentially what it's about. It's about the creation of Facebook, the question of whether or not Mark Zuckerberg did invent Facebook or not, and whether or not he did basically do over the person with whom he invented Facebook, and whether or not he actually ripped the idea off from the Winklevoss twins, referred to by Zuckerberg in the film rather terrifically as the Winklevi. It's an interesting film on a number of levels. I think the thing to say very clearly at the beginning is, and one of the things I like about it is that it is essentially a film about the idea that a social networking revolution is created by somebody who has zero social skills. Aaron Sorkin himself said that the key thing for him about the script was that Zuckerberg was the perfect storm, in that he had the technical ability to create Facebook, but he also had the need to create a social networking computer site because of his own inabilities. And it's very clear at the beginning of the film that when we meet him at the opening scene, he's breaking up with his girlfriend who tells him that he's a butt. And at the end of the film, somebody says to him, you're not, you're just trying really hard to be. And you think, no, he really, really is. Anyway, what happens at the beginning, we see him breaking up with his girlfriend, and he then goes off and very spitefully takes to the internet. And I think it's important that you understand this, because essentially the movie is not shying away from the fact that the birth of this idea is in something infantile, crass, chauvinistic, and basically revolting.
Erica Albright's a bitch. For the record, she may look like a 34C, but she's getting all kinds of help from our friends at Victoria's Secret. She's a 34B, as in barely anything there. False advertising. I need to do something to take my mind off her. Easy enough, except I need an idea. I'm a little intoxicated, I'm not gonna lie. So what if it's not even 10 p.m. and it's a Tuesday night? Really? The Kirkland Facebook is open on my desktop, and some of these people have pretty horrendous Facebook pics. Oh no! Billy Olson's sitting here and had the idea of putting some of the pictures next to pictures of farm animals and have people vote on who's hotter. Good call, Mr. Olson. The first thing we're going to need is a lot of pictures. Unfortunately, Harvard doesn't keep a public centralized Facebook, so I'm going to have to get all the images from the individual houses that people are in. Let the hacking begin.
Now, one of the things that I think is bold about the film is that clear thing at the beginning. This is your introduction to this character. He's horrible. I mean, he's horrible in as much as he's basically lacking in social grace, and he's somehow taking that out on the internet. Now, during the course, there have been some things written about the film complaining that the film is misogynist. I think the film depicts misogyny quite clearly, but I don't think it in itself is misogynist. The other thing is that there's been a lot of talk about, how much it's a David Fincher film and how much an Aaron Sorkin movie, and people are saying that essentially the key thing here is Aaron Sorkin. People are very, very used to Sorkin's, zingy one-liners. The fact that there's a story that his original script was, when they read through it, considered to be too long for the film, and so Fincher said, we'll just get everyone to talk faster because I don't want to cut any of the dialogue out. So at the very beginning of the movie, actually, when we have that initial conversation, the speaking is so fast that you have to tune your ear to it, because when it begins with Zuckerberg and his partner breaking up, and the level of talking is very, very sort of snappy, and the whole thing carries on all that way through the movie. You do actually tune into it. I think that's perfectly fine. However, I would argue that it's clearly within the canon of David Fincher's movies. I mean, for example, if you look back at something like Zodiac, which is based on a true story, based on the novel, but based on the book by Robert Graysmith, is a sort of recent history piece with recent period history done by a director who's very, very focused on detail. He's painting a very broad canvas, but he's taking this story all the way through all its labyrinthine twists and turns. It's also, in the manner of something like Fight Club, a film about men with men and about the way in which men behave with other men and about all the horrors and the repugnances of that, and that's perfectly fine. Also, clearly, from the minute the film opens, the visuals of it, you couldn't mistake them for being David Fincher. It's an external shot of this college. It's that kind of brown green. I mean, this is shot by Jeff Cronenweth, who I think shot Fight Club, who's worked with who's worked with Fincher before. So all those things tie together and clearly make it, in my opinion, into a David Fincher film, as much as people are referring to Aaron Sorkin's script, which is very motor mouth, very fast. If you read it, it would be a very, very long book, and every line would be quotable. But it is primarily a Fincher film. What Fincher manages to do, which I think is quite extraordinary, is to make the most interesting film about a bunch of essentially horrible, overprivileged, unpleasant people sitting in rooms arguing about copyright and occasionally going online. Now that in itself is a triumph. There are false notes. There is a moment about 2/3 of the way through the drama when it's almost as if the filmmakers themselves have lost faith with being in the rooms, and we go to a boat race, and suddenly it turns into this moment which looks to me almost like a commercial for Old Spice. It's with that tilt shift lens thing, which one particular bit of the screen is in focus and the rest isn't, and you suddenly get this scene of these rowers surging through the water, and it almost felt like we've got to get out, we've got to take it out somewhere. It's like when they take a play and they put it on the screen. You felt like it was expanding. It didn't really need to do that. That's the first one. The second thing is that the film does have and I mentioned this to our Aaron Sorkin, but it does have a big chubby moment. And you remember chubby hum you're going to say, what is it, right?
Yeah, what is it? And it's something that doesn't exist anyway.
No, it does exist.
No, it doesn't. If you watch the original, anyway, explain what it is.
Okay,
and then...
chubby. Yeah. Oh, fine. Chubby hum is a phrase that was coined by John Ronson. Credit where it's due. And John Ronson and I were having a drink one evening, and he said he
another one.
Yeah, exactly. And we came up with an idea for a program, which was chubby hum is the moment in a film based on real events in which the person or persons do the thing for which they are famous, or are seen generating the thing for which they are famous. And it comes from, in John's memory, a moment in the Karen Carpenter story when Karen Carpenter opens a copy of Billboard magazine to read a review of the new Carpenter single. And she says something like, "What does it say about me?" And Richard says, "Oh, it says something like the chubby drummer kept time." And Karen Carpenter goes, "Chubby? And suddenly the next thing you know, this is explaining the
Except that she doesn't.
Except that actually she doesn't quite do that. No, John slightly misremembered it, but it didn't matter. It became then shorthand for the moment in The Doors when the Ray Manzarek character played by Carl McLachlan goes, hang on a minute, you guys go outside.
The problem with that shorthand is by the time you've explained it, it's not really helpful. Anyway,
no, but there is a great chubby moment in Social Network in which somebody rushes up to Zuckerberg as he's putting this thing together and says, "That girl that you've seen, she's in your class, and I need to know whether she's going out with somebody. I need to know what her status is. Is she with a boyfriend? Does she want a boyfriend? Does she want to be? Does she want?" And Zuckerberg character goes, "Look, it's not like people walk around with a notice board on their." Hang on a moment, and then rushes to the nearest computer. And the next thing, he's invented Facebook and the social status thing. Now that is it's a moment that actually provoked laughter. I actually rather enjoyed the moment because it seemed to be almost knowing that they had to do that particular turn. So I think there are a couple of places where it's slightly wrong-footed. There are a couple of places when it breaks out of its... I mean, certainly after the boat race, it never quite recovers the momentum that it had before. And there is a desire at the end, I think, to humanise and take the edges off some of the characters in a way which I personally could have lived without. But for the most part, it's clearly a Fincher film. It's clearly a film by the guy who made Fight Club, made Zodiac, made Seven, I think, as well. You know, you can see that. I can't see much of Alien 3 in it, obviously, but that's because he had Final Cut. And what I like about it is a film which isn't scared to say these people are interesting, but they're poisonous.